Salutations. I'm William Hamblin, and today we'll be discussing the reproduction of the Parthenon in Nashville, Tennessee. During the Peloponnesian War, from just after 500 BCE until around the mid-5th century BCE, Athens was in a very difficult position, which included it being sacked twice by a massive Persian invasion force. Many famous battles were fought during this war, all of them foundational to Western civilization. Amongst others, I'd name the battles of Marathon, Thermopylae, and Plataea. At this time, the Athenian city-state had recently adopted democracy, which was then put to the test through the remainder of the conflict. Following those events, the golden age of Athenian democracy flourished, and the cornerstone was firmly seated for what would later become Western civilization. Amidst all of the wars, politics, and city-states of ancient Greece, the third temple of Athena on the Acropolis was built. It replaced a slightly smaller effort started a decade or two before, and it stood next to the ancient temple of Athena Polis, otherwise known as the Hecatompedon. That remained standing next to the Parthenon until the Roman period ended, which is often not discussed at all. The Parthenon that we know began its life within a century of the founding of Athenian democracy and existed throughout those halcyon days of yore. Effectively, it tied itself to the foundation stone of Western civilization and has stood there ever since in the minds of those who know. The Parthenon in Nashville has this history of the halcyon infant days of Western civilization indelibly connected to every facet of its being, yet this history is largely unknown to the locals who often visit it. As for the building, from Wikipedia's Parthenon page, quote, "The Parthenon is a pariterral octostyle Doric temple with Ionic structural features. It stands on a platform or stylobate of 3 steps. In common with other Greek temples, it is of post and lintel construction and is pariterral, meaning surrounded by columns carrying an entablature. Octostyle means there are 8 columns at either end. It also has 17 columns on either side. There is a double row of columns at either end. The colonnade surrounds an inner masonry structure, the cella, which is divided into 2 compartments. The back room of the cella was known as the Opisthodomos, which contained the monetary contributions of the Delian League. At either end of the building, the gable is finished with a triangular pediment originally occupied by sculpted figures. The Parthenon has been described as the culmination of the development of the Doric order. The Doric columns, for example, have simple capitals, fluted shafts, and no bases. Above the architrave of the entablature is a frieze of carved pictorial panels, metopes, separated by former architectural glyphs, triglyphs, also typical of the Doric order. The continuous frieze in low relief around the cella and across the lintels of the inner columns, in contrast, reflects the Ionic order. Architectural historian John R. Cincinnati suggests that this unexpected switch between orders was due to an aesthetic choice on the part of the builders during construction, and was likely not part of the original plan of the Parthenon. Measured at the stylobate, the dimensions of the base of the Parthenon are 228 by 101 feet. The cella was 97.8 feet long by 63 feet wide. On the exterior, the Doric columns measure 6.2 feet in diameter and are each 34 feet high. The corner columns are slightly larger in diameter. The Parthenon had 46 outer columns and 23 inner columns in total, each column having 20 flutes. The roof was covered with large overlapping marble tiles known as imbrices and tegulae. The construction of Nashville's Parthenon started in 1895 for Tennessee's Centennial Exposition. The Nashville Parthenon is the only replica of the Athenian version built to a high degree of fidelity in the world. William Crawford Smith drew up the plans for the Parthenon recreation, which had been suggested by the director of the Tennessee Centennial Exposition, Major Eugene Kastner Lewis. Yet, by the 1920s, patching had done all it could to keep the original temporary structure standing. which led the city to get involved with, as William Payne in the Tennessee Encyclopedia of History notes, quote, local architect Russell Hart and architectural historian William Bell Dinsmore, end quote, to shore up the temporary building with a permanent makeover. Although the intention was to create an accurate representation of the classical structure, at the time of its creation, much was still lost about the exact details of the Parthenon, such as the 92 metopes, which were copied from available metopes from the southern side of the original Parthenon, which, considering there is an orientation shift between the original Parthenon, whose door to the Athena statue faced due east, the Nashville Parthenon, by contrast, the same door faces due north. These metopes on the southern side of the original Parthenon were the best preserved. The series of metopes depicts the fight between centaurs and lapis, otherwise known as the Centauromachy, and is overly represented on the Nashville Parthenon as a result. Currently, the Sculpturhalle Basel in Switzerland has a series of more recently worked metopes and friezes faithfully reconstructed from findings that have since been examined. If their work was to be incorporated into the Nashville Parthenon today, then the metopes depicting the War of the Amazons, the Amazonomachy, the Fall of Troy, the War of the Giants, the Gigantomachy, and the War with the Centaurs, the Centauromachy, might all be faithfully included on an updated structure. Received was about the battle. The better answer for why the Parthenon in Athens remains a ruin today is because from the moment the Parthenon stopped being used as a pagan temple in 380 CE, it became a Christian church. Following this, when the Ottoman Empire invaded and conquered Greece, it became a mosque. And then in 1680, the Moravian War led Austrian soldiers to attack the Parthenon, which had been reinforced and defended by an Ottoman garrison, who had used the Parthenon as a no-joke powder storage magazine. A fortunate shot from an Austrian cannon, that's what the Austrian general called it, detonated that magazine and wrecked the Parthenon. Cella walls came completely down in chunks. The external columns are lucky to be standing in any state, and all of this sculpture and history was just reduced to dust and fragments. If you were to rebuild the Parthenon, what time period would you rebuild it to? Would you rebuild it to the original, or to the Christian temple, or to the Islamic mosque, or to the powder storage magazine? And in any of those events, whichever time period you pick is going to eliminate the ability of those who visit it to see it from a different time period. Nashville's Parthenon is really special. So special, if you live in Greece and want to see the Parthenon, you might just take an airplane trip to Nashville, because what you'll see in Greece is nothing like what exists here. Here, the Nashville Parthenon has a 44-foot tall chryselephantine statue of Athena Parthenos in the main area of the building, sitting behind two bronze doors, each of which weighs 7 tons and are so finely balanced you can open and close them, I kid you not, with a pinky finger. Sitting outside the Nashville Parthenon is the impressive and amazing Centennial Park, which includes an artificial lake, Lake Watauga. It includes a bronze monument to the suffragists who obtained women's right to vote here in Nashville, nonetheless, as we learned earlier this year. There is a Confederate monument still somehow standing on the side of the property, which actually includes my direct paternal great-great-great-grandfather's name, John Henry Hamblin. There's a garden sitting on the western edge of Centennial Park that has a bench in it, which some of you may know from a Taylor Swift music video. And then there's also a nearby amphitheater, which used to house Greek plays every so often. It's a dream of mine to start what I'd like to call the Peripatetic Olympics, where we get a group together to put on Greek clothing and walk around the Parthenon talking ancient philosophy. Let me know if you're interested. And I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of the original Parthenon, the Nashville Parthenon, and the mingling between the two in terms of history and importance. It's been an absolute joy to speak to y'all this semester. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you all. This is William Hamblin signing off.